Hi, my name is Sarah Felter, and this is my thesis, Roaring Elephants, Legend of Salsa. My theory explores the idea of preserving history that is known within a community but not preserved by traditional museums or exhibitions. And the topic I chose is the history of salsa in the South Bronx. So, the big idea is that salsa music is two things at once. It was born from oppressive times, so it is a form of resistance, but it is also joyful expression within the culture. The interpretive approach I took is breaking it up through the song Plastico by Ruben Blades. It's a song that looks at the Latino experience in the 70s and the way that they were seen from the outside without being given a chance to shine as individuals or as a community with merit, truly. And these are a lot of issues that are still happening today for Latinos. The main clients I have are Latino Public Broadcasting. They are funded by PBS. Their main message is about educating and shedding light on Latin culture. I have BX Arts Factory, which is a local nonprofit in the South Bronx. And then the Kaufman Music Center is facilitating a specific part of the exhibit, which is a centerpiece musical instrument. The neighborhood I chose, it is at St. Mary's Park, and it is in South Bronx near the Longwood area. This is an area that is rich in salsa history. There are all these clubs uh, and this music shop, Casa Amadeo, where all these musicians hung out. So this is an area where this history is specific to them. For the site, I chose specifically the amphitheater in this park, and I chose this park because it is right in the middle of the South Bronx. It's heavily used by the community. And while I was there, I spoke to a lot of people who were aware of the history of salsa and the presence it has in the community. So moving into my concept, taking different lyrics from the song, the big thing I wanted to do is show that it starts and ends with the community. There's two areas that are El Barrio Presente. They are also participatory elements, so they focus on highlighting the community and the different uh, things and beauty and culture that exists there. Then the in between is filling in the blanks about information and things that people might not know. For reference, these are my references. I looked a lot at old newspapers and this blending of different graphics. And I really wanted to play with these curvy shapes that were nonlinear as I was thinking about salsa music and dancing. You need to have a lot of motion to it. And again, this is that visitor journey, just it's that circular starting and ending with the community. So getting into the graphics, Roaring Elephants as a title refers to a quote by Eddie Palmieri where he called the horn section or the brass roaring elephants. They're loud, they're disruptive, you can't miss them. The music itself was a form of civil disobedience, so this needs to be reflected in the graphics as well as the final design. So this was my graphic look and feel, had this newspaper in the background of how people saw Latinos with this brightness and this form of protest that exists. And then for the logo, it was very important to me that it was also in Spanish. So this exhibition is a bilingual exhibition where the Spanish portions are treated just the same as the English portions. And I chose this final yellow as the bright color as a callback to the horns, as well as this bright, sort of disrupting color. And then here are those portions broken out into the English and Spanish. For the wayfinding, I have these phone booths that are branded where people can hear stories. They can pick up the phone and hear stories from people who lived in the neighborhood. There's also an activity in the exhibit that calls back to this. And then there are also these footprints throughout that sort of guide people where to go. So getting into the design, this is the floor plan. And then here's an axon that shows a little bit more of what's going on. It's a very circular, sort of free flowing exhibition. Has these color blocks on the floor to uh, corner off some of these activities, and there's the large centerpiece. Again, with the bubble floor plan is showing it starts and ends. There's these portions that speak to each other of the community participating. So getting into the first area, where the community steps forward is there's these series of tiered graffiti walls that are open and facilitated by BX Arts, where people from the community will come in and they will show their artistic intent and use graffiti as it was meant to be used. And it will constantly be changing, and it's a way for the neighborhood to say, this is who we are, this is what we have to offer. So even people who are visiting outside of the community can see there's this bright culture here. Here's a storyboard walking through that, uh, this participatory nature, and people can see the walls. For the next portion, this is a timeline. So it has these magnetic blocks that go on the wall with different events, both specific to salsa and also to the time that it happened. So because they're magnetic and movable, people can move them into uh, the order that they either remember it happening or think that it happened. And so the topics that are chosen, this is a sample of some, range from very specific to salsa in Fania at Yankee Stadium, or specific to things at the time in the Bronx, like the Liberty Island takeover, as well as just other things happening at the time in New York, like Son of Sam, so that people can orient themselves and they can think to remember where these things happened. And then it sparks a conversation because the more people that come, the more people who talk about what they remember happening. So it's a way of self regulating history and creating a timeline. Getting into the next portion, this is that, but they do not hear in reference to that plastico. So this is the large centerpiece. It has all these pipes. It goes that varies from brass to bronze, and it has this newspaper casing on the outside that's fabric, which can be changed out if needed. So each of the pipes has a sensor under them, so the more people who step under it, the more sound it generates. And here's a shot of the interior. So there's these footsteps on the ground. They come in twos and threes as a reference to Conclave rhythm. So it is also an educational tool, hence why Kaufman will be facilitating it. It is a more permanent part of the exhibition. It's very large. It's made out of steel, um, as well as the entire idea of it is going back to salsa and music in general. The more people you have, the more music it generates. So this can stay in the park past the rest of the exhibition and still be relevant to the community. And this next portion is what they do not hear. And this goes into the global origins of salsa and sort of parts of it that people don't recognize. So here in the storyboard, there's a radio on the wall where people can tune it to hear different stations. The different stations are coordinated with different countries because a lot of people may not know that salsa is a global genre and it doesn't just come from New York or Cuba. So this is a way to show that transition over time and how it's come together and where it comes from. Then this is the Faces of Hope, and it goes into these phone booths, which is referenced in the wayfinding. And so people can go up and they can hear stories from people at the time so that people within the community who live there may not know about that past, and the visitors from outside the community can come in and hear real people's perspectives, whereas the timeline was a little bit more factual. This brings in a bit more of a personal element, and people can record their own stories there as well as hear other people's stories. So it's a form of collection as well as education. And then this section is plastic, but plastic also melts. And so this talks about the downfall of salsa and how it fell because of the greed of Fania, the record company. So it's this graphic treatment where we have these black and white album covers and this plastic overlay that is the color, and the color is melting off. And this references that the vibrancy and color comes from the people, and that once that's taken away and it's more of a capitalist venture that with less focus on the culture, it melts. There's nothing left there. And then this is the final section that calls back to the neighborhood again. And it's a wall where people can write where the neighborhood needs to be improved and who they know that can improve it, because these gaps that exist, these issues that we talked about in the 70s still exist today, but the community has found ways to move forward and knows nonprofits. So it's a way of discussing the issue while also providing uh, a solution. And then this is some of the collateral. It's a how to salsa dance, as well as one of a branded vinyl of Plastico. And that is my tale. Thank you for